One of the things about the Forge booth, and also about the Forge forums, the publisher forums, was that game content was not a criterion. That your game could have, could be of any kind in terms of its playability, the way it's played. And so one of the things I like to point out is that the Forge booth participants included a large number of people who became OSR luminaries, and they brought their D&D supplements or their fantasy role-playing supplements, which were all about mazes and stuff, and that they were welcome there. And that one fellow who came for a year and benefited very greatly had a computer mapping, disc that he sold, and it was really good, actually. It did its job, and it was great. But the point is that if you came to the Forge and you were an independent publisher, that was the criterion.
Yeah.
Now, what happened was that a few publishers who were small press, or rather were didn't have the kind of external appearance of being some mini corp, but who really wanted to be. And who worked primarily with freelancers and other creatives. So the guy was a publisher, and he would organize the print, and he would organize the distribution, and then other people would write the games. And then sometimes his games were, he would have his own games too. But a great deal of the work was from people who were being hired. And they wanted to be involved at the Forge, right when the Forge got its sort of big, huge, positive boost in the mid-2000s, and they wanted to be part of it, and I said no. And so they got angry and said, I guess that's because I'm not indie enough. I'm not innovative enough. I'm not weird enough. And I was like, no, it's because you're not independent. But that was not heard. And so the idea that the Forge had content standards was a common accusation on the basis of their experience.
This is also something at least I reflected a lot about, because we also tried to explain a lot of theory, to explain a lot of what we were, of our intellectual toolbox, and this is something I still fear nowadays, to what extent are we limited to kind of male intellectual? So
I suppose I have found that insofar as good has been done in that realm, that I saw positive events.
Sure.
There are plenty of people who have plenty of criticisms. I have ultimately decided that to do better per unit time is a good thing. And to do better than the admittedly low standards of the larger society is a good thing.
Yeah.
And whether you're great is, well, I don't know. To be praised at how good you are at that,
it's strange.
Is something that I don't think I'm going to aspire to.
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, that's something. Okay. If I ever am good at it, then somebody can point it out who's qualified to point it out.
Yeah.
And if I'm not, well, I'll settle for the other two. Right. And
I translated. I already translated Play With.
Right. Yeah. We've talked about that. Yeah. I actually have a few copies of that sitting on my shelf. Yeah. Nice. I'm very fond of it. I actually thought that production was exceptionally well done.
Okay.
I really liked the book.
I was very angry at the editor at the time that the illustrations were really male-gazing.
Well, I agree about that. And one thing that frustrated me, I've had my own fights about this. Because the original, first of all, the text is not gendered.
Yes.
Right. I've been specifically that the text is not gendered.
Yeah.
And that there's nothing about heterosexuality in the lover or anything like that. It's just
which is impossible in French.
Right. Well, true enough. I mean, you end up with a lot of he and she.
Yeah.
I had two artists that I chose carefully, and that I said I worked with very, very carefully. And one did the cover, and one was supposed to do a couple of interiors, and he did do the interior piece, the one that's actually pretty cool, right? It's a guy coming through into some sort of portal or something. And then the cover piece with the monster and the bear woman. And I said, I want those. And we worked hard on that, and I had the interior artist set up with 5 or 6 more pieces that they were supposed to work with, you know, and do what they wanted with, but had very strict standards. And that artist just flaked out, just lost his mind and couldn't complete anything. And so a friend of mine said he would step in to do a couple of pieces, and he got another friend of his who did a lot of kind of rock and roll, you know, kind of outrageous comics.
Okay.
But they started off message, and they went further and further and further off message. So I had to pick some of their work, which was not the best art of the bunch. The other pieces were just completely wrong. And some of the pieces that I felt that I put in there were wrong enough. So it was really a struggle. And I'm really not happy with it. I have rewritten the manuscript, and I have, for clarity, the rules are the same. And I have always wanted to reissue it with the proper art, which would be suitably naked, outrageous, you know, sexual and everything, but everybody's involved.
Exactly.
Right? And so it is frustrating. I mean, there are a couple of naked guys in there, and there are a couple of heroic women in there, but the gestalt doesn't come together.
Okay.
As in the original art. And so I fought that fight, and I lost. I don't think I lost it all the way, but what you're seeing is a very painful compromise.
Okay.
And I think you encountered the same thing. So when I saw the art in that production, I said to myself, I think I see the problem. You know, I know the fight that they were fighting, and so I was tended to be a little forgiving about that. I was like, all right, I know this isn't easy, but you know what I've always wanted to do for that game?
Okay.
A rock and roll album in vinyl.
Okay.
And then the game is an album insert, right? You open up the 2 covers, and there it is, a little booklet right there. And that's
so a huge booklet, I think.
Well, yeah, it has to be big because we're talking a vinyl album, right? I mean, I want the full thing. I want rock and roll. And so, it to me, you know, that's sort of my personal vision of the ultimate Slay With Me. You know, you buy this album and there is a game in it. But you know, talk about your vanity publication, though.
Yeah. I've played about I'd say 50 or 60 plays of Slay With Me.
Oh wow!
And because it's quite useful for people to.
It's a great pickup game. Yeah.
For experimental role playing game. And it's always exactly something that you exchange and you build together. It works quite well. Works quite well.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I'd love to hear more about those one of these days. Sort of a personal reflection on the creativity involved would be fantastic. But is there anything before we close? Is there anything else you wanted to, that occurred to you that maybe I interrupted when you were trying to say?
No. But there's so much I'd like to, because I'm not advertising for my own games, but there are really great games that are made in France. That's really
go ahead and start with yours.
Sure. I'm very happy of my last game, which is called Jardin des Esprits. So
you mentioned that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Simon already knows.
Simon had that. He showed it to me.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Yeah. No, we were looking through all the things he brought from France.
Oh, okay.
And laid them out. So I actually got a good visual look at these. So yes, absolutely.
this one is really really young. So it's been a few weeks. It's a game about empathy, which is something and I'm really into.
We didn't get to talk about empathy and memory. We were supposed to talk about memory. Next time.
I'd like to. Yeah. I'm very into fantasy and not non-violent fantasy. These days, sorry, I would love to write more games in this direction.
Which is very funny, considering Circle of Hands is the most violent thing I've ever written or thought of in my life. So
I've written a game called Monastatus, in which you basically kill everything that stands in your way.
Well, there you are then. Yeah, so we do that too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Should we? I'd love to tell you more about the games that.
Well, there's only one way.
Yeah, sure.
Only one way for me to learn that, and I am all for it. So, we'll set up times and we'll set up some time and play.
Absolutely. I'd love that.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Fabien.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
And
we should have done this years ago. What were we thinking?
Absolutely.